The restaurant shimmered under soft, golden lighting, its polished marble floors reflecting the quiet elegance of wealth. Crystal glasses clinked gently, and low conversations floated through the air like a carefully composed melody. Every guest seemed important, dressed in designer outfits, carrying the confidence of privilege. Among them moved Amara, graceful, composed, almost invisible. She carried a tray of drinks with steady hands, her posture straight despite the long hours. Her uniform was simple, her presence understated, but there was a quiet dignity in the way she worked. She noticed everything: the subtle impatience of guests, the unspoken signals between staff, the rhythm of the room. Then the atmosphere shifted. A man entered, and attention followed him like a shadow. His tailored suit, his confident stride, the way the manager rushed forward to greet him, it all spoke of power. Victor Hale had arrived. When Amara approached his table, he barely glanced at her. His eyes scanned the room instead, as if measuring its worth. "Water sparkling," he said sharply. "And be quick." His tone wasn't loud, but it carried authority, dismissive, practiced. As Amara turned to leave, his lips curled into a faint smirk. Leaning toward his companions, he muttered something in French, just loud enough for them to hear. They laughed quietly. Amara paused for the briefest second, her fingers tightening slightly around the tray. But she didn't react. Not a word. Not a glance. She simply walked away, her expression calm, her silence unbroken, while behind her, the laughter lingered in the air. Victor returned the following night, just as confident, just as untouchable. The staff noticed immediately. Some straightened their uniforms, others exchanged knowing glances. Important guests meant careful service. But for Amara, it meant something else entirely. He chose the same table. When she approached, his expression didn't change. It was as if she were part of the furniture, necessary, but unworthy of attention. "The usual," he said, barely looking at her. As she poured his drink, he began again. This time in Italian, his voice smooth, almost amused. His companions leaned in, listening closely before breaking into soft laughter. Amara's hands remained steady. She didn't react. Didn't hesitate. But inside she listened. Every word, every inflection, every hidden insult wrapped in a language he assumed she didn't understand. The pattern continued over the next few evenings. Victor would arrive, surrounded by wealth and arrogance, switching languages as easily as he switched expressions, French one night, German the next. Each comment laced with quiet mockery. And each time, Amara said nothing. But she was not ignoring him. She was studying him. At home, in the quiet of her small apartment, she would replay every word in her mind. Sometimes she wrote them down, translating them line by line, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to remember. Not out of anger, but intention. Because silence, she knew, was not weakness. It was timing. And when the moment came, she would not miss it. The evening felt heavier than usual, as if something unseen had settled over the room. Victor sat at his usual table, confidence draped over him like his expensive suit. His companions leaned in, already anticipating amusement. For them, it had become a ritual. Amara approached with a bottle of wine, her expression calm, her movements precise. She poured without spilling a drop, her focus unwavering. Victor watched her this time. A faint smirk tugged at his lips as he leaned back in his chair. Then, in slow, deliberate French, he spoke, loud enough for the table, but meant to exclude her. "A girl like her should be grateful she's even allowed in a place like this." The reaction was immediate. His friends chuckled, one shaking his head as if the remark were clever rather than cruel. Amara placed the bottle down gently. For a brief moment, everything seemed to pause, the clinking glasses, the quiet conversations, even the soft music in the background. Then she straightened and looked directly at him. Her voice, when it came, was calm, controlled, unmistakably clear. In flawless French, she replied, "A man like you should be grateful money can't reveal how small he truly is." The laughter died instantly. Victor's expression froze, the smirk fading as confusion and disbelief replaced it. His friends stared at Amara, stunned into silence. But she wasn't finished. Switching seamlessly into Italian, then German, she repeated his past remarks. Word for word, each one echoing sharper now, stripped of its secrecy. Then, meeting his gaze, she said in English, quietly, "I understood you from the very beginning." And this time, no one laughed. The silence that followed didn't break, it spread. For a few seconds, no one in the restaurant seemed to move. The soft clinking of cutlery had stopped, conversations had faded into nothing, and all attention drifted toward Victor's table. The weight of the moment pressed into the room like a held breath. Victor sat frozen. The confidence that once defined him had cracked, replaced by something unfamiliar, uncertainty. His eyes flickered toward his companions, searching for the laughter that usually followed his remarks. But there was none. They avoided his gaze, their earlier amusement gone, replaced by discomfort. Amara stood composed, her posture unchanged. She didn't look angry. She didn't look triumphant. If anything, she looked untouched, like someone who had simply spoken the truth and moved on from it. A guest at a nearby table slowly lowered their phone, though not before capturing enough. Others had already begun whispering, their voices low but urgent. The moment was too sharp, too unexpected to remain contained. Victor opened his mouth as if to respond, but no words came. For perhaps the first time, he had nothing to say. Amara gave a small, professional nod, nothing more, nothing less, and turned away. She resumed her work as though the moment had never happened, her calm presence contrasting the tension she left behind. But the room had changed. And Victor felt it. Not in the silence, but in the eyes now watching him differently. By morning, the moment had escaped the walls of the restaurant. A short video clip, shaky, dimly lit, but unmistakably clear, circulated across social media. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times. By midday, it was everywhere. People replayed the scene again and again, the billionaire's smirk, the quiet insult, and then Amara's calm, precise response. Comments flooded in, praising her composure, her intelligence, her restraint. She became a symbol overnight. Not of defiance, but of dignity. Victor, on the other hand, found himself at the center of a very different narrative. News outlets picked up the story, dissecting his behavior. Headlines questioned his character, his leadership, his values. Interviews he had scheduled turned tense, reporters no longer interested in his success, but in his silence. The same confidence that once impressed now felt hollow under scrutiny. But beyond the headlines, curiosity grew around Amara. Who was she? The answer surprised many. She wasn't just a waitress. She had studied linguistics and international relations, excelling in multiple languages. There had been a time when her future seemed destined for diplomacy or global work. Life, however, had taken a different turn, family responsibilities, financial struggles, choices made out of necessity. Still, she never lost what she had built within herself. When journalists finally approached her outside the restaurant, cameras ready, questions eager, she remained the same, calm, grounded, unshaken by attention. She didn't boast. She didn't criticize. She simply said, "Respect shouldn't depend on who you think is listening." And somehow, that stayed with people longer than anything else. Weeks passed, and the noise surrounding the incident slowly faded, replaced by newer stories, newer distractions. But for those who had witnessed it, or watched it unfold online, the memory lingered. One evening, the restaurant doors opened quietly, without the usual ripple of attention. Victor Hale stepped inside. No tailored entourage followed him this time. No eager manager rushed forward with exaggerated politeness. He looked the same yet different. His posture less rigid, his expression more restrained. For the first time, he seemed like just another guest. He chose a table near the corner. When Amara approached, her steps remained steady, her face composed as always. If she felt surprise, she didn't show it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victor stood. It wasn't dramatic, nor rehearsed. Just a simple, deliberate gesture. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice quieter than before. "Not just for what I said, but for how I chose to see you." The words hung between them, sincere but heavy. Amara studied him briefly, her gaze searching not for perfection, but for truth. The arrogance that once defined him had softened into something more human, uncertain, but genuine. She gave a small nod. "Then be better," she replied calmly. "No anger. No lecture. No need to prolong the moment." Victor exhaled slowly, as if releasing something he had been carrying. As Amara turned and walked away, the restaurant continued as usual, but something had shifted. Not in the room, but in him.